I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 6 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty fast, and got married right after we both finished our degrees. Everything seemed perfect, or at least that's what I convinced myself of. We had a nice house, good jobs, and a life that felt stable and secure. But lately, I started noticing small things that didn't sit right. It started about 3 months ago. Jessica, who's always been kind of a bitchy, manipulative girl, suddenly became more distant. She used to be the type to text me good morning every day, tell me she loved me, and ask about my day. Now she'd often stay late at work, claim she was busy, and sometimes wouldn't answer my calls or texts for hours. I figured she was just stressed or caught up in her new project, but there was this constant feeling lurking in the back of my mind. Something was off. Then came the little lies. She'd pretend she was at her sister's house, but I'd find her car parked outside some random guy's apartment after work. I saw her getting into a guy's car once, and I swear she looked right at me and smirked like she knew I'd never figure it out. I felt my stomach drop. I could tell her excuses, that she was hanging out with friends or needed a break, but I knew better. I'd been cheated on before, and I recognized the signs. She was hiding something, and I wasn't going to be left in the dark anymore. It all came crashing down one night. I was scrolling through her phone, just trying to see if I could catch her in a lie, and I found a message thread. It was from some guy named Tyler. The messages weren't explicit at first, just flirty stuff, her teasing him, calling him babe, saying she missed him. But then things got more intense. They were planning to meet up that very night. I saw her reply with a "can't wait to see you," and my chest felt like it was caving in. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my partner, was planning to cheat on me, and she had the nerve to lie about everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was I just blind, or had I chosen to ignore all the warning signs? I was furious, heartbroken, and confused all at once. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there. The thought of her betraying me, lying to my face, made me want to scream. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I had to confront her. I had to hear what she had to say, though I already knew it wouldn't be pretty. So I sat there for a while, staring at her phone, just trying to process what I'd found. My hands were trembling and my stomach was in knots. I kept thinking about all those nights she'd come home late, the little lies she told, the way she acted like she was hiding something. I felt betrayed, but more than anything, I was furious. How dare she do this? How could she look me in the eye and lie so effortlessly? It was like I didn't even know who she was anymore. I decided I couldn't wait until she got home. I needed to see her face, hear her excuses, or maybe just get this over with. When she finally walked through the door, I could see the smirk on her face, like she knew she was getting away with something. That irritated me even more. She looked at me and asked, "What's wrong, Mike?" Like she had no idea. I asked her outright about Tyler, about the messages, and her face immediately changed. Her eyes flickered and she started to fidget. She tried to deny it at first. "That's just a stupid joke," she said, laughing it off. "You're reading too much into it." But I wasn't buying it. I showed her the messages and her face drained of color. She stammered, trying to come up with some kind of bullshit explanation. Said she was just bored, that Tyler was just an old friend she bumped into at work, that it meant nothing. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes. She was lying, and she knew she was caught. I felt every emotion hit me at once. I was angry, betrayed, heartbroken, and honestly, I felt numb. My voice was shaky, but I asked her why she did it. Her response was classic. She started crying, blaming her feelings, saying she was stressed, that I wasn't paying enough attention, that she just needed something else. She told me she loved me, that she never wanted to hurt me, but she couldn't help herself, that she was just weak. Yeah, right. Weak enough to cheat, but strong enough to lie straight to my face. I remember staring at her, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to throw her out right then and there. Another part just felt crushed, like I'd lost the person I thought I knew. I mean, I've never been the most perfect husband, but I never thought she'd do this. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty. Now all of that seemed like a joke. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut so hard I could hardly stand. And yet I knew this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the betrayal of trust, the lies she told every day to my face. and I was starting to realize that things would never be the same again. After she finished her sob story about stress and feeling neglected, I just sat there trying to breathe. My mind was racing, but mostly I was just pissed. How could she think she could get away with this? How could she lie so easily and look me in the eye while doing it? I guess I had been naive, thinking we had some perfect marriage, some unbreakable bond. No, Jessica just wanted her cake and to eat it too, flirting, cheating, lying her ass off. I told her she needed to leave. Not just for the night, but for good. I couldn't stomach the idea of her staying in the same house, breathing the same air, while I was supposed to pretend everything was normal. She started crying harder, throwing out more excuses, saying she loved me, that she was sorry, that she'd never do it again. But I wasn't buying any of it. Sorry doesn't fix cheating, and love doesn't erase betrayal. I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't going to make any rash decisions right now. But deep down, I knew I was done. The trust was shattered. Her tears and apologies only made me angrier. How many years had I wasted on her bullshit? How many nights did I sit next to her, thinking she was faithful when she was out there lying? It all felt so stupid now. I felt like I was walking around in a fog trying to hold myself together. She left that night, clutching a bag and sobbing like her life was over. Honestly, part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but most of me just felt hollow. Like I'd been punched in the chest so many times I couldn't breathe. I spent the next few hours just staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I'd seen and heard. The lies, the sneaking around, her sneer when she thought I wasn't looking. It all made me sick. I kept asking myself why I didn't see it coming, why I'd been so blind. That night was the beginning of the worst emotional roller coaster I've ever been on. One minute I was furious, ready to burn everything she touched. The next I was just numb, questioning whether I'd ever truly known her. I realized that this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about my own sense of worth, my ability to trust anyone again. I'd always been the guy who believed in honesty, who thought love was about loyalty and respect. Now I wasn't sure what was real anymore. All I knew was that I had to face the aftermath and figure out what the hell my next move was going to be. The days that followed were a blur. I felt like I was living someone else's life, watching myself from the outside, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. I was angry, of course, mostly at her for cheating and lying, but also at myself for being so blind. How did I miss all the signs? I kept going over everything I saw, every little detail, trying to find some explanation that would make sense. But there was none. It was just betrayal, plain and simple. I couldn't help but think about the times we fought, the little arguments that now seemed insignificant compared to what she was doing behind my back. I remembered how she'd snap at me for no reason, how she'd cancel plans last minute, and how she always seemed distracted. All those moments now felt like clues I ignored, signals I didn't pick up on. It made me feel stupid, but it also made me realize I couldn't trust her anymore. Not ever. I also started to question whether I wanted to fix this mess. I wasn't sure if I could. Part of me wanted to grab her and shake her, demand she tell me everything. Why, how, when, but I knew that wouldn't get me anywhere. Instead, I started thinking about what I needed. Time, space, clarity. I told myself I wouldn't rush into anything. I'd give her some space, let her come to me if she really cared. But let's be honest, I wasn't even sure if I wanted her to come back. The thought of sharing a bed with her again made my stomach turn. The worst part was the emotional toll. I was oscillating between rage and despair. One minute I wanted to confront her, yell and scream until she admitted everything. The next, I just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. My mind kept replaying the moment I found her messages, the way she looked when she tried to lie her way out. That image burned into my brain, haunting me day and night. It made me realize how fragile everything I believed in was, how trust, that thing I thought was unbreakable, could shatter so easily. I confided in a couple of close friends, but honestly, I wasn't really ready to talk about it openly. It was too raw, too fresh. I didn't want anyone to pity me or tell me I should forgive her. I just wanted peace. I needed to figure out if I could rebuild what was lost or if I should just cut my losses and move on. Still, deep down, I knew I was hurt worse than I'd ever been. The betrayal ran so deep that I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. Every good memory now felt tainted, like a dirty stain I couldn't wash out. My biggest fear was that I'd spend the rest of my life looking back, wondering what I could have done differently, what I missed. But the truth is, I was discovering that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people just betray you because they don't have the guts to be honest from the start. So I'm stuck here in this mess, trying to pick up the pieces of a life I thought was perfect. And honestly, I'm just trying to breathe through the pain and figure out what comes next. After a week of feeling like I was walking through a fog, I finally decided I needed to face her again. Not because I was ready to forgive, but because I couldn't go on living in limbo. I texted her, telling her I wanted to talk. She responded almost immediately, acting like everything was normal, like she hadn't done anything terrible. It made me sick. I was tired of her lies, tired of the games, tired of feeling like I was losing my mind. When she showed up at my place, her face was a mixture of guilt and defiance. She tried to act like she was the victim, that her cheating was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. She told me she loved me, that she didn't want to hurt me, but that she couldn't help herself. She threw in some tears, some apologies, and a lot of blame shifting. The worst part was, I saw right through it. She was trying to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty for catching her, but I wasn't having it. I told her I needed to think about whether this relationship was salvageable. Honestly, I was already leaning towards ending it. I was done being the fool. I asked her to leave, and she did, slamming the door behind her, acting like she had won some kind of battle. But I knew better. I knew this was just the beginning of a much longer process of healing, or of walking away for good. That night, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling and replaying everything. I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. Part of me wanted to burn everything she ever touched, but another part knew I had to find a way to move on. I kept thinking about my future, what I wanted and needed. Did I want to stay in a marriage where trust was broken? Could I ever forget this? Would I ever forgive her? Or was it better to cut my losses and start over? I realized I had to make a decision. Staying in a relationship built on lies was pointless, and I didn't want to waste any more years with someone who didn't respect me enough to be honest. I knew I deserved better. I deserved someone who loved me enough not to cheat and lie. But the hardest part was accepting that I might have to lose her completely, lose the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd married. The betrayal had cut so deep that I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. Still, I promised myself I'd find a way to heal, even if it meant starting from scratch. In the days that followed, I made up my mind. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, not after what I'd uncovered. I sat down and had a long, honest talk with myself about what I wanted, what I deserved, and what I could accept. The truth is, I realized I was better off without the constant lies and betrayal. I needed to find my own happiness again, even if it meant walking away from Jessica for good. I moved out of the house. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but I knew it was necessary. I filed for divorce, knowing that I couldn't keep pretending it was just a misunderstanding or a mistake. It was more than that. It was a fundamental breach of trust, and no matter how much she begged or tried to justify herself, I couldn't go back to someone who lied to my face and cheated behind my back. The pain was still there, like an open wound that wouldn't fully heal. But with time, I started to feel a little stronger. I focused on rebuilding myself, on rediscovering who I was outside of that marriage. I learned that losing someone you loved so deeply isn't easy, but sometimes it's the only way to find peace. I realized I had spent so much time trying to hold onto a false idea of love that I'd forgotten what real trust and respect looked like. Looking back, I see this experience as a brutal but necessary lesson. No one deserves to be lied to, cheated on, or made to feel small. If I could give any advice to someone in a similar situation, it's this: listen to the signs early, trust your instincts, and never settle for anything less than honesty. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is your own worth. You deserve someone who respects you enough to tell the truth, no matter how hard it is. I don't regret the pain or the heartbreak because it taught me how to stand up for myself. It reminded me that no relationship is worth sacrificing your dignity and peace of mind. And though I still feel the sting of betrayal, I know I'll be okay. I'm moving forward stronger and wiser. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us the most.